Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining for our September 2019 license staff meeting. As a reminder, you have to attend 8 licensed staff meetings, with those being in person and 4 being on Healthcare Academy. If you are unable to make the meeting, remember to try and make these meetings a priority. It's really good conversation and it's good learning opportunities for all of us. Again, thank you for coming, or thank you for watching this presentation. I look forward to going through some of the information. Some of it is going to be a repeat. Other parts that are going to be new, and then there's going to be some opportunities for me to look for some feedback from you guys. So we'll get started here. So the MedSafe. I first want to apologize for the delay in the MedSafe. There's been some confusion with the order that I placed that's causing extensive delays. So I placed an order for Woodside Village and myself at the same time for the second MedSafe. Well, the rep that I'm working with thought that the second MedSafe was actually for was the one I was ordering for Woodside Village, so the second one never got ordered. So I did place the order for the second one to be placed in, excuse me, in the Riverside Back Nurses Station. So, but a couple of things with the MedSafe, you have to remember that medications cannot be liquid greater than 4 ounces, no aerosols, no sharps. And to save on some space, I would suggest maybe either punching out some of the medications prior to the MedSafe or not putting bottles in there. That will just help ease on the quickness of the liners. So far, since we've gotten the MedSafe in July of 2019, we've actually ordered 3 extra off-cycle liners. So those are expensive. They're close to $200 a liner. And so while I understand we need it, we do need to be conscious of the medications we're putting in there and are all of them appropriate to go in the MedSafe. So just wanting to put that out there so that we can have a better system. Also, when the MedSafe is full, please do not, we cannot continue to shove medications in there. What happens then is that those medications, about a quarter of from the top of the box to the top of the MedSafe inside, that all goes into the new box, which we're um, constantly trying to get ahead, and this doesn't allow us to. So hopefully the additional MedSafe will be a really good um, way for us to stay ahead of the destruction that we have here. UDA clipboards. So we all need to be checking our UDA clipboard every shift just to make sure we're completing the required assessments. So we have a lot of assessments that pop up, and if you go on there and if I were to go on and I saw one that was red, I would be, it would be, I guess I would click on it because I'd be curious to see why it was red. If it was overdue, I would just go ahead and complete it, and if it was not overdue, I would clear it out, because oftentimes when people come in and out of the facility, they a lot of these a lot of these assessments are like auto-populated, so some of them might be from the previous state and some of them might be from the current state. So you really need to take a peek at that and make sure and just get rid of them and clear them out if they're not necessary. You will be able to put in a reason, so like a duplicate or whatnot. Also, this includes those transfer assessments and comms. So those assessments that are scheduled are not optional. And I do think that it's okay for all of us to keep each other accountable. So if I miss something, I would expect that Leah or Kate or Garth or whomever, any of you, to say to me that, Jess, you missed this on that day. So don't take offense to that if people are holding you accountable. It's really good for you to grow, and it's good for you to really see that, and learn how to prioritize and get these things done that are required. If you have any questions on that, please let me know. I can work with you. Otherwise, Renita is really, really good at helping you guys through that and teaching you how to use the UDA clipboard. Lung assessments and pneumonia. This is from a couple of months ago, but I wanted to keep this on the agenda because I felt like it was really important. So when you're completing your comms assessments, we need to make sure that we're listening to the lungs thoroughly. I did an audit of comms assessments on a neighborhood where we had a couple of people go back to the hospital with pneumonia. I was surprised to find out that out of 2 neighborhoods, there was, or excuse me, out of 2 out of like the 30 residents that I looked at with comms had clear lung sounds or either that or diminished. There were no other adventitious lung sounds identified. So not that I don't think we do a great job assessing, but I think we have to do a little bit more of a thorough assessment to make sure that we're not missing something. You know, you can't just listen to the lower lobes and think that that's, you know, good for the assessment. You have to continue to do your full lung assessment, your full heart assessment, your full bowel assessment, your full um, you know, uh, edema assessment, fluid, all of that. So making sure that we're doing a really good job with that is crucial. I'm going to go over some documentation, just a few things that I learned at convention this last week, and a couple of them were really important things that we should chart. But one thing that was really stuck out to me is the grammatical side of charting. There were some identified issues from a legal nurse consultant that really could get some people into some trouble with how they word things. And one of the things that she said that really stood out to me was that it, you know, to make sure that our charting isn't sloppy. So if we're charting and we see that we have, you know, red underlines for a word, you want to right click on that and make sure. We did have an issue at one point, or a note at one point here in the facility where um, we had a resident with a deep tissue pressure injury, looked at the charting for it and the interventions put in place, and it said we had a provolone boob. So when we do those things, like that word wouldn't have auto-populated or auto-corrected, so that makes sense. But at the same time, it's about rereading and relooking at your notes. The other thing too is when she said that if we have sloppy notes or we're not looking, you know, our notes don't make sense or they're run-on sentences or things like that, it actually makes us look incompetent. And I know that none of us are incompetent. We all have a degree, we all have a licensure. So just as a quick reminder, just to make sure that we're reviewing our documentation, because anytime we do sign on that and we put it in the chart, it's now a legal part of the chart. So when you think about some of the things that we see in charting and how that would hold up in a court, it makes it a little bit scary at times. So just really, again, as a reminder, just for you guys and all of us to review what we put in, review the chart note prior to submitting it or hitting save. Care plans and gate belts. This topic has come up quite a bit lately. In the last month of September, I know for sure we've had, I believe, four avoidable falls, and I think three of them were as a result of not having a gate belt. So as a reminder, the gate belts are not optional. We have to have them. They're in each resident's room if they use one, and they're also on each person. So we need to make sure as leadership that we're looking at those CNAs and we're talking with them and we're doing kind of some spot gate belt checks just to make sure that they have them. The thing that we really forget, or the CNAs maybe don't realize at times, is that if they were to do a transfer without a gate belt and an injury was sustained, then we look at a potential abuse and neglect investigation, which is detrimental. You know, we don't want CNAs to lose their certification. We don't want the state to have to investigate, but we also have a duty and an obligation to protect the residents that we serve and also protect our coworkers. So we need to just make sure that we're looking at that. A couple of suggestions that I have had through some other meetings were to, you know, do a spot gate belt check when you're just walking down the hallway. Say, hey, can I see your gate belt? There will be an audit of gate belt use again. But you know, this type of stuff is serious. Even if a resident is saying, I don't need a gate belt or what, or I just forgot my gate belt is another thing. You should never forget your gate belt or go without one because each room is equipped with one if the resident uses one. So even if you don't have yours, there should be one in the room. But again, this is really serious, and please make sure that as all of us are out and we're answering call lights and we're looking around, that when we do assist, we are actually using a gate belt and we're setting that example because we'd hate for them to see us doing something that could potentially cause an injury or, you know, look at could be looked at as potential abuse and neglect. So please work on this with me and let me know what you guys are seeing, if you're running out of gate belts, if you're seeing staff aren't using them, so that we can work together and try and make sure that this doesn't happen again. Standing orders, I put this also back in because I wanted to make sure that we really understand the concept of the standing orders. So when you guys are looking at standing orders, as a reminder, you don't need to contact the physician. And the reason you don't have to is because all of our practicing physicians that work here or in this in our corporation use um, have signed our standing orders so that we can use them. Again, looking at when you guys are using like when we're out, you guys are looking at your MAR, excuse me. I want you guys to start looking at the PRN tabs, and if it's really bogged down by a bunch of PRNs, look at when the last time it was given, and if it's been over 3 months and it's not a glucagon or an Ativan for seizures, I would just discontinue it for you if I were you, just to be able to clear up some of that. Because if I'm not going to use it, let's not have it clog up our MARs. Weights. When receiving a weight from a CNA, make sure to double check what the previous weight was. So if the weight is plus or minus 3 pounds, we should reweigh the resident. In asking in a couple of the other meetings what the process is on each neighborhood, I got a few different variable answers. And so while I don't want to tell you how to do it, I want you guys to start looking at your neighborhoods and figuring out, okay, well, is it the bath aide that puts the previous weight down and then they look at the next weight? Or is it the nurses that do that? Or vice versa, and really look at the process you guys have. Lanark has a really good process. I think Almont also has a good process, and Reeves and Riverside. I think everyone kind of has their own process. But if you're kind of wanting to look at how others do it, maybe just visit with the bath aides on the other neighborhoods or the nurses. Resident transferring out. So when we have a resident that goes out or leaves out of our community, we want to make sure that there's a note in the chart to reflect that they left and also that they returned. The reason for this is because like if I were to be in the business office, if I was a business office employee and I wanted to look and see, I see the ADT or the timestamp basically from when they were out, excuse me, not in the business office. If I was a care coordinator, I would want to know kind of where they went and why and how, especially if it was a hospital transfer or a emergent transfer or something like that. But another thing to keep in mind with this that's really important is that if we know somebody's going to be going out for the weekend, we really need to do a skin assessment prior to them leaving and then excuse me, upon return. We also need a progress note that states Barb left with her daughter, went home for the weekend, will plan to be back on Sunday. Skin is intact upon, prior to leaving, etc., things like that, just so that we're covering, because a lot of times, obviously, when people go out, they don't have the pressure reducing interventions that we have. And it's just really nice when you can look in the chart and you can paint the picture of the whole entire, where they went and how long they were going to be gone for and whatnot. So just really keep that in mind that if someone else were to read our charting, how would it look? Okay, vital signs. So first of all, I have to apologize for the issues that we've had with Welch Allen. I believe this week that has been resolved. We did have the Welch Allen server basically redone, or we got onto a different server for our vital signs machine, so we shouldn't have any issues, hopefully, going forward. But I wanted to talk to you about the temperatures and like vitals that are entered manually. So if you look at the screen on the right, we've got a bunch of different temperatures that are flagging because of the basically the number that's been inputted. So, you look at these and you see a temperature of 9.8. Well, we know that that's not correct. We also know that a temperature of 9,738 isn't correct. One of the things that we have to remember when we're doing these is that the vital signs pushes that over, and then what has been happening is because the task is on the bath aide's point of care, it will turn red, and so then they're going and they're implementing the vitals in addition to having them sent over on PCC. So I want to really reiterate the fact that we do not have that task on POC can stay red. And I did talk about this at the other meetings, but if you can just as a reminder, because then it takes away the risk of inputting the wrong numbers or just kind of a off the wall number where it's not intentional. I know 972 is probably supposed to be 97.2, but it isn't in there, so I can't tell you for sure. So again, just really, we need to slow down. We need to pay closer attention and just make sure that if we do have to input something manually, that we're or double checking it before we hit the save button. Call-outs are getting a little bit lengthy again, and this is getting a little concerning. And we understand too that the staffing has not been ideal. We're working really hard to continue to give you guys the number of staff that we feel that you need. Excuse me. But I wanted to pass along that any call-outs now that are greater than 30 minutes, we're going to consider those an adverse event. Once, or any light period, or any light greater than 20 minutes, will need still continue to need that call-out review form filled out. But so the adverse event will be a light greater than 30 minutes, or a call-out with any negative outcome. So a negative outcome could be anything from a resident who is incontinent, or excuse me, who's continent but is incontinent as a result of waiting for someone to answer the light. It could be a psychosocial concern where they are completely upset and they're very distraught about having to wait. It could be pain, it could be a pressure injury, it could be kind of all sorts of things. But again, one of the things with those call-out review forms, those are to help us troubleshoot. So I appreciate all of the answers that come on there. But one thing I want you to remember is that 30-minute call-out, you get the review form. That call-out's been done. We know that it happened. But how do we make it so it maybe wouldn't happen again? If you're going to work with 4 CNAs and 3 nurses, how do you get all of us together to say, hey, we are we're going to rock our call-outs today. We are not going to let a call-out go over 20 minutes. I have to give some kudos out to the Landmark staff last weekend. They had 3 CNAs and they didn't have a single call-out over 20 minutes. Last night on VT, they had 163 call-outs from between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. and they didn't have one light over 20 minutes. So I know we can do it. I know we can make it happen. We just have to make it a priority again. Skin and wound. This is a reminder of making sure that you guys are following up with the Skin and Wound app and the UDA clipboard to make sure you've got a picture, a description of the wound, what it's looking like, if it's improving or if it's deteriorating. One thing that did come up too in a meeting is if you guys are doing a wound assessment and you're doing a comms assessment as well, you don't have to make a separate skin and wound note. You can make just a note in the skin and wound section of the comms assessment. You don't have to make a separate one. And then also Heidi was kind enough to put a module together for Healthcare Academy that will be assigned out beginning October 1st. And it'll be due by October 31st, which is going to be all about how to stage wounds, staging pressure injuries, identifying them, knowing what to do, just really wound care. Because I felt like we've had a few issues lately with identifying the wounds and staging, where we've maybe staged them as a stage 2 and then Heidi's looked at them and they're actually a MASD or moisture-associated skin damage. So this is going to be a good refresher course for all of us. Also remember too, when you are staging wounds, you have to have 2 nurses. One of them has to be an RN. Real-time charting. I talked about this the last couple of times. But I really, really, really want you guys to keep looking at real-time charting. If there's a alarm on your phone or like the neighborhood phone that you want to set, you can do that. I actually set that every day on my phone because I look at the dashboard and so I look at that real-time charting. But just making sure that we are charting as the day goes on. So if you guys could just peek at that dashboard maybe 8 o'clock and see where we're at, and if we have anybody who's charted on, and if not, like, we need to get on the walkies and say, hey guys, just a reminder, can you guys start doing your real-time charting? So we're going to need to continue to give them some tips and pointers in order to get this to kind of stick a little bit more and get them to want to do that. New orders. So when receiving new orders for medications, you need to use the PO shape sticker. Those stickers are crucial to being able to make sure all of the steps of the order are complete. Don't skip that step because it does put people at risk for errors, for med variances, or adverse events for our residents. An example of kind of something that I found when I was out I was at an adverse event in the building, and it was a low blood sugar, and we had a resident who she had had her short-acting insulin discontinued 7 days prior. So her blood sugars were pretty up and down anyways, but that particular morning she was really, really low. And so I had asked, well, did the short-acting insulin get removed from the cart? And so I went and checked the PO sheet sticker, and it was all signed off that it did. But I went to the cart to check, and the short-acting insulin was still in the cart. Now, I can't say for sure if it was given or not, but I wanted you guys to hear that story to know about the risk of giving that and how somebody could have easily given one versus the other. So when you guys sign those stickers off, we have to make sure that we're doing what we're signing off. The audits for this, so Kate has been auditing, these will continue with her and Sarah for the next probably month for sure, weekly. So make sure you guys are doing this, don't skip that step, and don't sign it if you haven't done it. Because if you sign it and you've done it or you haven't done it, then that just makes the whole process or your, like credibility kind of goes out the window. And I know you guys, like everyone out there does a great job with this, but I just wanted to put it in as a reminder. Medication pass. We cannot put any creams or leave medications in resident rooms. We had a situation where a resident had 2 sets of creams in his room from the nurse, a nurse, I don't know which one, but one was BioFreeze and one was an anti-itch cream. And so the CNA was asking the resident, if he could get him ready for supper or bed and all that. And the resident said, well, I needed to put my anti-itch cream on. And he continued to ask until the CNA did it, but the CNA took the BioFreeze instead of the anti-itch cream and put that all over. So those are the kinds of things that can happen when we expect CNAs to do our duties. So one thing that was suggested is like Calmo, for instance. If you have a lot of people on Calmo and Corona, talk with Heidi, and I would get those switched over to the Alavesta ointment, number 3, because then the CNAs can do that. You don't have to be in and out of rooms doing creams. So looking at all of those areas and trying to kind of clean those up a little bit, but also take away the risk for the nurse to be leaving the med in the room and then the CNA to be putting it on. If you have a confused resident and they go and take the cream and then they eat it or something like that, which I know sounds awful and crazy, but it does happen, we are then liable because we put that resident at risk. So please make sure that we're not leaving our creams in the carts, and if we need to get them changed to the Alavesta number 3, because the CNAs can put that on. So the med card audits from Thrifty White. Oh, these are a little bit unfortunate, I would say. For this month, we had quite a few concerns in regards to those audits. And, on one cart, for instance, we had 5 medications that did not contain the required information on the label. We had one med, this is all in one neighborhood, one med that was not dated, one med from a patient who had discharged was still on the cart. We had 5 expired meds in the supply. So that was a little bit scary on another neighborhood. You have one thing we have to remember to do is label our insulins and eye drops or any other time-sensitive medications. So part of the problem with this audit was when Andrea from Thrifty White was going through the carts. They'd have an open date on them, but they wouldn't have an expiration date. So like if it's insulin and we know it's good for 28 days, we need to make sure that on that sticker where it says open and expiration date, that we are putting that in there so it doesn't get missed. Same with certain eye drops, like the Lantaprost, things like that. They all have a different time frame. So we have to put the expiration date on those. Another one she was saying is triamcinolone cream. So we'll have to look at that. I guess that has a shorter life too, which I wasn't aware of. But make sure that you guys are taking these audits very seriously. I, was a little taken back because they've been so good until this one. So I know that we do a really great job with it. But I was really fearful that, had Survey walked in the building, this would have been it would have been widespread. It would have been a pretty big disaster. So part of those PO sheet stickers that we talked about earlier say to take out the medication and pull the old medication. And we have I think we had 4 people's medications still in the cart that had not been told that they were no longer here or no longer ordered. So make sure that those steps are being taken to prevent an error. Neighborhood emails, again, as a reminder, it's your responsibility to check the emails. It's all of our responsibilities to check, and it's all of our responsibilities to respond in those emails. So make sure that you check this, not just a charge nurse, it can be all nurses, so flex, part-time, full-time. If you don't know how, ask your coworker so that they can help you check it. But we do a lot of mass communication to the neighborhood emails. One of the things that came up in the meeting in regards to this was, well, the VT nurses have their own emails, so they don't normally check the neighborhood email. So I really encourage you guys to check and log into the neighborhood emails because it's difficult for us who are sending mass to remember to put all the right people in it. So using the neighborhood email is a lot easier for us. So if you have any questions on that, let me know. Kayla has just a few things here that she wanted me to cover. So, I didn't change that. Valley senior living's definition of a valid exposure is a percutaneous break in the skin with a contaminated sharp splash of blood, fluid in the eyes, mouth. We did have a situation where someone had urine exposed to in their mouth. So she just wanted to put this in here to make sure that you know kind of what to do for known and unknown sources of exposure. Grab that red occupational exposure binder at the nurse's station. If it's blood or any bodily fluid, it'll walk you step by step through that process. Cheryl Springer at the lab. Just make sure when we're bringing labs over, we're not leaving them on the counter. I know that someone had left blood in a brown bag, a tube of blood, and the staff didn't know who left it and when it came or where it came from. So just make sure if we're gonna bring labs over that we take it over, and we wait for someone to grab it from us. Precautions again apply to all disciplines. So if you have a maintenance slip for someone, something in someone's room who's on precautions, please identify on the maintenance slip that they're on precautions. So it gives a maintenance person a heads up. Same with housekeeping. We had a resident with C. diff and had asked for something with maintenance to be done. Filled out a maintenance slip. The maintenance person went in and was not protected against that, so they were exposed to it. So this is a kind of another help. The OSHA needle OSHA regulation for the needle evaluation is complete, so that's good. And then be on the lookout for our flu shots. They'll be coming here about the third week of October. So employee behavior, sexual harassment is something also that I wanted to talk. I know you guys probably hear about this stuff every now and again, but when it comes to employee behavior, trust your gut. I feel like sometimes we are worried about maybe not making the right choice and we're worried we might offend somebody. But if there's somebody who's displaying erratic behavior or behavior that just isn't the norm for that person or just a really big shift, make sure you pull them aside and you talk with them about it. If you're under the impression or sensing that they might be under the influence of either a substance or alcohol or just anything, please make sure to take them off of the neighborhood. We would hate for them to be providing any care if we were worried about their safety. So again, I just say trust your gut, speak up, advocate. You guys know your coworkers best. You know them much better than anybody else. You work with them every day. So just wanting to put that out there. The other thing too is looking at sexual harassment. So if you're hearing anything that alarms you, it makes you feel uncomfortable, somebody's saying something to you, you're saying something to somebody's you hear say something that someone has said to someone, make sure that you guys take that very seriously. We all should actually take that very seriously and bring it to human resources if we are having an issue with what we feel to be sexual harassment. All right, code status. This has kind of been a big topic lately. So a couple of things to touch base on here is that I plan to get rid of the code blue or the full code list on the code blue clipboard. So just to rephrase that, we will continue to have the code blue clipboards, just not that full code list. The reason is we had a resident who was a full code and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon changed their code status to a DNR. About 4 a.m., the resident had they had been checked on the resident. He is obviously deceased. They went back to the code list, and he was still listed as a full code when truly in PCC he was a DNR. So the nurses attempted CPR, Long story short, nobody utilized PCC to check the code status, and so we can't rely on a paper system that could potentially put us at risk for someone not updating or someone updating. So we need to get rid of that. And what I want you guys to do is to utilize the PC or is to utilize PCC to check the code status. Or you could go to the paper post in the chart if it's current, which it should be. But when you log into PCC into that resident, you see the banner and it's got the code status right there. We are simplifying all of those. That will be coming here in the next week or two. Renita has been working on updating so that it will only say CPR or DNR. It won't have all the extra jargon in there because it gets a little too confusing. So it will say CPR or DNR. One thing to keep in mind, CPR does not always mean, DNR. You can have people who are a DNR but want full treatment. That full treatment does not mean they're a full code. If code status is specifically relating to CPR or DNR. So they can be a DNR and then want full interventions, but that would be in like a situation such as if someone was starting to kind of get sick and we're identifying it, we send them to the hospital and something happens, that's where that kicks in. Now, if we were to find somebody in cardiac arrest, we would not resuscitate if they were a DNR. So I just wanted to clarify that and make sure that you guys are looking at that, looking in PCC at the banner. This will probably, like I said, take effect come October 15th or 14th is actually what we thought that Monday. So we'll make sure to communicate out further to the neighborhood emails even closer as we, or the closer we get to it. Customer service. So I just wanted to touch base quickly on customer service, and it struck me last week at conference that I was at in Fargo in regards to customer service. And I think about all the times that we all are walking around the building and we're, doing this and that. And I think, how many times do we say hello? And so the one thing that the speaker said that kind of got me was, do you say hello and greet your customers? Because really, I mean, as much as we hate to think about it this way, we are a business and we provide customer service. So I think of all the people that walk down the hallway that are coworkers that I work with that, I often wonder if I wouldn't say hi, would they say hi first? I'm sure they would. But when you think of it that way, are we greeting all of our guests? Are we greeting all of our visitors that come in? And I want to make that a point for all of us to do that. In our code of conduct, it does state that we will greet each other by name. And so I challenge all of us to work really hard at that and to make it the best environment we can, because that's the stuff that people will want to remember. The other thing too is, we brought up an example in another meeting where if you've got a family member and they've just moved their loved one in and they're really hot that day, like they're coming in, they're just mad about everything and they're coming at you. A thought to think about during those situations is, are you listening to react or are you listening to learn? That really kind of struck me as okay, I need to remember that I don't need to react to that emotion and that this is their loved one and they don't trust me and I'm going to earn that trust and I'm going to make it a really great stay for them. You guys all do a fantastic job with that, but I feel like it's a good reminder for all of us to just to kind of let that soak in a little